Every single Marvel hero, villain, sidekick, intern was dying. And the reason, Wade Wilson, aka Deadpool. Not Galactus on a diet, not Kang with a time travel tantrum. No, this was worse. Permanent. Irreversible. The Marvel Universe was circling the drain, and the last thing anyone saw before their grand finale was the grinning face of Deadpool. And narrating all of it is Uatu the Watcher, because nothing says this is a big deal like a giant bald man in a toga giving a TED talk about cosmic doom. Uatu, the ever monologue enthusiast, observed the chaos with all the emotional investment of a guy watching paint dry. He had seen timelines collapse, realities shatter, and entire galaxies blink out of existence. But never before had he seen something quite like this. And it all started with the Fantastic Four. Inside the Baxter building, Susan Storm wept over the crumpled, dying form of Reed Richards. Who did this to him? Deadpool, of course, but off-screen. Mr. Fantastic was many things. Genius, scientist, world-class rubber band, but unkillable wasn't one of them. His last words? That their kids were safe in the negative zone. Which, considering how things were going, was like saying, hey, at least the goldfish is safe while the house is on fire. The remains of Ben Grimm the Thing were scattered around the room like a sad rock slide. And Johnny Storm, well, he was about to have a really bad day. Because crashing through the wall like a kid who just found out Kool-Aid Man was a real thing came Deadpool. In a stolen spaceship, and Johnny Storm, ever the hothead, barely had time to say flame out before the entire ship landed on him. Which unfortunately was not enough to kill him. That's why Deadpool slit his throat right after. Susan went invisible, but guess what? Blood splatter doesn't turn invisible. Deadpool wiped Johnny's blood from his mask, his grin widening as he turned toward the now visible Susan. Susan, being a proper badass, just blew his head up with a force field. Which would have been great, except, Deadpool's healing factor. A few seconds later, Wade's head was back and so was his sword. One quick stab later, and Susan Storm joined her family in the afterlife. The Fantastic Four, not so fantastic anymore. Now let's rewind. How did we get here? How did Deadpool go from a wisecracking mercenary to a genocidal maniac? Funny story, Once upon a time, the X-Men, in their infinite wisdom, thought they could cure Deadpool's insanity by tossing him into Ravencroft Asylum. The place where all their worst enemies usually break out of. But his doctor, not exactly your friendly neighborhood therapist. Nope, it was Psycho Man, a D-list villain with a PhD and messing with people's brains. His goal is to shut off Deadpool's inner voices and turn him into a personal attack dog. It worked, kinda. The usual chaos in Wade's head went silent, and in that clarity a new voice emerged, one that wasn't just another personality but something deeper. It showed him the truth. He saw the patterns, the resets, the way no death was ever permanent, the way no victory ever really mattered. He remembered dying countless times, blown up, sliced apart, crushed, vaporized, only to be fine in the next issue. He realized that nothing he did would ever mean anything, because he wasn't a person. He was a character in an endless cycle, existing purely for the entertainment of forces beyond his control. It's basically being used for content and getting zero pay. That's when his new voice whispered its solution. If the world's fake, if nothing truly mattered, then the only way to make it real was to end it. For good. Psycho Man didn't even get a chance to celebrate his breakthrough. Wade crushed his head like a cheap ink stamp. And because Deadpool never does things halfway, he blew up the entire asylum for good measure. Back in the present, with Fantastic Four gone, Deadpool moved on to something no one ever thought possible. Tracking down Uatu the Watcher. Uatu stood firm, attempting to maintain his usual aura of omniscience, but it was difficult to appeal all-powerful when a lunatic was shoving a Reed Richards device directly at his face. The device spun in Deadpool's hand, its purpose unclear, but the intent behind it was obvious. The Watcher remained silent, perhaps hoping that indifference would make Deadpool lose interest. It didn't, so Deadpool sliced his head off. In an instant, Uatu ceased to exist. Deadpool dusted off his hands and moved on. There was still plenty left to kill, and the news spread fast. Every network was reporting on the chaos, but no one sounded more exhausted than Trish Tilby, whose live broadcast was bordering on disbelief. The list of casualties continued to grow. Dr. Doom, Ghost Rider, and even Howard the Duck, who had been roasted alive. Elsewhere in New York, Spider-Man was in the middle of a fight he had never expected to lose. Years of dodging attacks from some of the most dangerous villains alive had made him cocky, but that confidence wavered as Deadpool closed in. He had survived Green Goblin's bombs, Venom's fangs, and Kraven's relentless hunting, but Deadpool wasn't like the others. Without hesitation, a gun was drawn, a shot was fired, point blank. No chance to respond. Spider-Man hit the ground, his mask darkening with blood. The friendly neighborhood had just lost its protector. With Spider-Man down, things spiraled fast. His murders sent shockwaves through the hero community, not because Spidey had ever died before, he had, multiple times, but because this time it wasn't some big cosmic event or one of his rogues finally getting lucky. No, it was just Deadpool with a gun and zero hesitation. After knowing that even Tigra, Black Panther, and Iron Fist were already dead, the Avengers held an emergency meeting, which, given their track record, was about as productive as a government budget discussion. Some wanted to hunt Wade down immediately, others insisted on a plan, and Thor probably suggested hitting him with lightning. Then Jarvis walked in, casually announcing that Dr. Hank Pym was dead. That wasn't even the worst part. Pym particles were missing. Before anyone could process that particular red flag, the entire Avengers Tower exploded. Wade had been there the whole time, hiding, waiting, and when the moment was right, pressing a big red button that turned their headquarters into a very expensive fireworks show. Not everyone died on impact. Luke Cage staggered out of the wreckage, unharmed thanks to his unbreakable skin, but still dazed. Wade, always prepared, revealed that he had spiked Luke's morning coffee with tiny bombs, one small enough to bypass the skin, but still very capable of exploding inside him. Luke barely had time to swear before he was reduced to very durable chunks. Thor had a slightly different problem. The god of thunder called down Mjolnir, ready to put Wade into his place, but Deadpool had already doused the hammer and stolen Pym particles. The moment it started flying back, it grew and grew, and then it kept growing. By the time it reached Thor, it was roughly the size of a building. The last thing the god of thunder saw was his own enchanted hammer squishing him like a bug. Now, by the time the dust settled, the Avengers were officially off the roster. Now, there were two kinds of people Deadpool liked killing. The easy ones, and the ones who thought they were impossible to kill. Hulk fell into the second category. The first round wasn't even a fight. Hulk ripped Deadpool apart limb by limb, threw his torso onto a mountain, and walked away with a not my problem attitude. Unfortunately, Deadpool was his problem. Later that night, in a quiet, dimly lit cave, Bruce Banner slept soundly, having calmed down from his usual rage-fueled rampage. It was peaceful, quiet, until Deadpool crept in and sliced his head off. Without the Hulk's rage keeping him green and invincible, Banner was just a guy, and Wade knew exactly when to strike. The most dangerous creature on Earth? Now just another corpse in a growing pile. In the aftermath, the survivors tried to regroup. Not the superheroes, most of them were already dead, but the people they left behind. Mary Jane Watson, May Parker, and others gathered in a room mourning. And then they hired a hitman. Not just any hitman, the hitman. Taskmaster. Taskmaster didn't take the job for the money, though there was plenty of it. He took it because even he thought Wade had gone too far. Deadpool had done a lot of awful things over the years, but killing the Power Pack? That was just excessive. So Taskmaster started tracking him, following the carnage. Wade had left behind a trail of bodies. Venom, Multiple Man, Green Goblin, big names, small names, didn't matter. If they existed, they were dead. Taskmaster had no doubt that Wade wanted to be found. Meanwhile, Deadpool was already moving on to his next plaything, the X-Men. More specifically, Charles Xavier. Professor X woke up tied to a chair surrounded by monitors. The warehouse had been remodeled into one of Arcade's death mazes, a twisted labyrinth designed for one thing: murder. Wade had kindly borrowed the villain's talents and then, in true Deadpool fashion, left him chained up somewhere to watch. The X-Men had already stormed the warehouse in a desperate rescue attempt, but the House of Horrors was built for them. Cyclops, Emma Frost, Cannonball, and Pixie were the first to go. A strange red orb latched onto Cyclops' head. His natural instinct is to blast it off with his optic beams. However, the result was just a very big explosion that wiped out his entire team. Elsewhere in the maze, Rogue, Gambit, and Colossus found themselves trapped in a slowly collapsing room. Colossus, as usual, figured he could just hold the walls open, but Wade had already thought of that. The room wasn't just shrinking, it was rigged with several thousand volts of electricity. They never stood a chance. Professor X, still strapped to his chair, watched all of it unfold, horrified. That was when Wade made his offer. Read his mind, see the truth. Desperate for answers, Xavier did that, and immediately regretted it. Whatever he saw in Deadpool's head was so terrifying, so incomprehensible, that Charles Xavier himself, one of the most powerful telepaths in existence, shut down his own brain to escape it. Deadpool sighed, disappointed. He had expected a fight, maybe even some moral debate. Instead, Xavier's mind had simply given up. Too bad. Deadpool turned his attention back to the monitors, watching the carnage unfold like a demented director admiring his masterpiece. Magneto, reduced to a steaming puddle, courtesy of some creatively weaponized jellified acid. Kitty Pryde, stuck in a tesseract, permanently phasing through dimensions with no way out. Wade figured eternal entrapment was just as good as death, maybe even worse. Then, he saw him. Wolverine, still alive, again. The last time Deadpool saw Logan, he had been obliterated alongside the Avengers. But of course, thanks to the magic of brand recognition, Wolverine had grown back, again. Wade sighed. If he didn't finish this properly, the hairy Canadian would keep crawling out of the grave like an adamantium-infused cockroach. It was time to get personal. Wolverine moved cautiously through the warehouse, following the scent of charred flesh in despair. He found Arcade, the lunatic behind every Saw-inspired death maze the X-Men had ever been trapped in, now looking like a broken man. Arcade, chained up like a discarded toy, whimpered something about Deadpool forcing him to design the ultimate killing game. Wolverine almost put him out of his misery, but stopped when he heard something else. A flamethrower. He followed the sound and found them. X-23 and Dakin strapped to a mechanical nightmare that would incinerate them if they tried to heal. Wade had finally found a way to make Wolverine's clone stay dead. Then the real horror show began. Deadpool stepped out of the shadows, draped in what could only be described as a beast skin bathrobe. Blue fur, hollow eyes, and even Hank McCoy's oversized glasses perched on his mask. It was equal parts gruesome and insulting to fashion. Without hesitation, Wolverine lunged, but Deadpool was ready. The sword he held was carbonodium, the one thing that could actually nullify Logan's healing factor. One good stab and suddenly the unkillable Wolverine wasn't regenerating anymore. Wade took his time. He reminded Logan that he had technically already killed him once, the only reason Wolverine was still breathing was because, well, marketing departments wouldn't let him stay dead. But this time he had plans, and popularity wasn't going to save him. With one clean stroke, Deadpool took Wolverine's head. Finally. Meanwhile, Taskmaster was on the hunt. He had tracked Deadpool's movements across the world following the ever-growing body count. His latest stop? 177A Bleecker Street, Doctor Strange Sanctum, or what was left of it. Wade had already been there. The Sorcerer Supreme and his ever-loyal assistant Wong were now just another pair of corpses in the great Marvel body pile. But Taskmaster wasn't here to mourn. He was here to figure out why Deadpool had come. The answer lay in the scattered books. Wade had been searching for something, a way to break reality itself. And if Taskmaster's hunch was right, Deadpool was after something far worse than just killing superheroes. He wanted to destroy the nexus of all realities. As Taskmaster pieced things together, the rest of the world was falling apart. Riots had broken out everywhere, but these were normal riots. Heroes and villains weren't just fighting each other, they were killing themselves. One rooftop in particular held a disturbing scene, a mass suicide. A crowd of heroes and villains stood at the edge ready to jump. They weren't doing this because they wanted to, they were being controlled. The real mastermind? Puppet Master, aka Philip Masters. This guy wasn't an A-list villain, but his power was terrifying. He could craft lifelike puppets out of radioactive clay and use them to control real people. Normally, he stuck to petty schemes, mind controlling a hero or two of his own twisted games, but this time he wasn't acting on his own. Deadpool had forced him to make puppets of everyone. Now the entire Marvel Universe was dancing on his strings, their final performance leading them straight to their deaths. Before the controlled heroes and villains could take the final plunge, a gunshot rang out. the Punisher had arrived. From a rooftop across the city, Frank Castle had lined up the shot and ended Deadpool with a sniper round to the head. When Punisher approached the body, he realized it was too late that it wasn't Wade. It was Puppet Master, stuffed into Deadpool's costume like some grotesque decoy. The real Wade was already behind him, and in his hand, a tiny puppet of Frank Castle holding a gun. Before the Punisher could react, Tiny Frank pulled the trigger, ending him instantly. The Punisher had just punished himself. With the final strings cut, Deadpool turned his attention back to the cosmic stage. Using Puppet Master's creations, he manipulated the most powerful beings in existence. Silver Surfer, Thanos, even Galactus himself. One by one, they met their ends. Their own hands turned against them. Meanwhile, Taskmaster had finally caught up. In a swamp near the nexus of all realities, the final battle was about to begin. Taskmaster had seen Wade's handiwork at first hand, and he was done underestimating him. He knew every move Deadpool could make. He could anticipate every attack before it happened. This should have been a fight between equals. But Deadpool wasn't fighting to win. He was fighting to convert. Taskmaster quickly realized something terrifying. The longer he mimicked Deadpool, the more he started thinking like him. The chaos, the nihilism, the voice in his head. Taskmaster wasn't just copying Wade's style, he was becoming him. For the first time in his life, Taskmaster felt true fear. And that's when Man-Thing appeared. Man-Thing, the creature who burned anyone who feared him, didn't hesitate. Taskmaster, reduced to ashes. With one last play, Deadpool convinced Man-Thing to self-destruct, ripping open the fabric of reality itself. Deadpool stepped through the tear, found himself somewhere new. A quiet room, no superheroes, no villains, just a group of writers sitting at their desks, discussing how to end the comic. The story was over, but Wade, no, he wasn't done. He cracked his knuckles, grinning. Then he turned, not to them, to us. And with a knowing smirk, he whispered, "I'll find you soon enough." And that's how Deadpool ended everyone. Was it his greatest masterpiece or just another Tuesday? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more Marvel Mayhem. See ya!